To tour or not to tour? That is the question. Do you want to share your holiday with a group of potential new friends and have everything taken care of for you? Or do you prefer to do your own thing and plan it out all on your own? That is the topic of today's debate, and it might help you decide if you should reserve a spot on the next tour or if you should skip the organized travel and brave the world on your own. Either way, before that can happen, it's
Wheels up.
We're gonna be two hearts running wild.
Welcome back to the Meander Travel Podcast. Or, if you're a new visitor to the podcast today, thank you for tuning in. My name is Tony, and my partner in crime here is my wife, Julie.
hello.
We have been traveling together for over 35 years, and I recently retired from my job of 30 years so that we could travel even more. We have meandered all over the world, and several of those trips have been through organized tour groups. However, we often like the flexibility of planning our own adventures. We are pretty well versed in both approaches, and we believe that there is a time and place for each. So let's break it down.
Funny thing, so you just got back a few days ago from a trip to Italy that you planned yourself with our youngest daughter. And then I just returned from London and Paris with my mom, where we took an organized group tour.
We sound so like I was in Italy and you were in London, Paris. Tralla.
It does sound pretentious, but that's what we quit our jobs to do. So anyway, we took both of these options over the past 2 weeks. You wanted to be able to show our daughter Rome and have fun, like doing your own thing. And I wanted some safety and the security while traveling with my mom, who has had almost 80 birthdays and she has some mobility issues. Overall, I think some of the deciding factors between these travel styles would be your budget, your travel experience and adventurousness, and the age and the health of the travelers.
By the way, I love that there's a certain age when you get to that we're outing a person's age, like a woman's age. Like, how old are you? You never say, but you're like, yep, she's 80. And I think that there's an age where like, oh, they're proud, they're older. But if it was like 40 or 50, you would never say, oh, my so-and-so is 50 years old. They'd be like, don't tell people my age.
That is kind of funny, and I think there is a threshold, but I don't know if I could tell you exactly what that number would be.
It's just not where we are right now.
Not where we are right now, but at some point it does become a matter of pride.
Right.
You've made it to a certain age, you're still doing good, you're moving and shaking, and then you're like, yeah, go me.
All right, off track. But I just kind of thought that was funny when you were just immediately out of your mom as 80.
I was trying to say it nicely, too.
Okay, so just so you know, there are tons of tour companies for every price point and also different levels of guidance, from fully guided, where a tour guide is with you the whole time, to partially guided, where you have some parts of the tour that are guided, but also combined for they combine with free days or free afternoons or something. And then there's the tours that are completely independent, where the tour company facilitates like the airfare, rental car, and home base hotels, for example. But then you're on your own for the rest of the time.
Yeah, okay, so for the sake of today's conversation, however, let's assume that we are referring to a fully guided tour where the entire trip is organized and executed by the tour company, and you've chosen it from, I don't know, their website or a brochure or something. I'm certain you've seen ads like these for tours and wondered, I don't know, would I like that? And what would that really be like if I were on that tour? Well, so that's what we're here for today. So these tours typically range from, well, there's all different kinds, but let's say 1 week to 3 weeks typically. And then you'll do a lot of that traveling by bus.
Oh, yay.
Well,
these are usually coach buses, but, nice ones. They're air conditioned and relatively comfortable with, like the plush seats, overhead storage. All the luggage goes down underneath, kind of like an airplane. And most have a bathroom for emergencies. They say, hey, let's try and use the towns. They don't want you to use the bathrooms, but, you got 30, 40 people on a bus.
They particularly don't want you to use the bathroom
for number two.
Yeah.
So that's why I said emergencies.
Yeah.
It's not uncommon to have at least 40 people on these buses. They hold more than that, but sometimes if it's a smaller group, you have a lot of space on the buses, so that's nice. And you get to know a bunch of people from all over the country, and potentially some people from other countries, but although that's less common because these tour groups cater to a certain place like the United States, or they looking for UK people, and then those people are all together. So,
Well, they're marketing towards a certain,
right. And a meeting spot from
geographic.
where they're coming from.
Yeah. Okay, so let's talk about the top 4 pros of why you should take a tour because there is a lot to like. I was particularly happy that we were on an organized tour for this past trip, so let's kind of go through it.
The first pro is safety. If you are a new traveler, this is a great way to become familiar with the ins and outs of traveling, while feeling like you're in a secure environment. Your expert guide takes it takes the lead in all things, but at your disposal for guidance, questions, and assistance. You may learn about the area's history, helpful local customs, how to exchange currency, how to use public transport, and the things that you see and do in your free time, is up to you. But for the most part, they take care of everything, and especially if there's an emergency, they are there in an immediate and a knowledgeable resource for you.
Yeah, so when traveling with my mother, that was really important to me. I wanted to feel like I had a safety net if there was an issue of any kind. And in addition, if you're traveling to a country where everyone speaks a different language, that can be very intimidating for some people. So being on a tour may feel less scary. For example, we went on a guided tour to Egypt in September of 2025 because we knew nothing about the region. The spoken and the written language are, well, very complicated, let's say, and we were concerned about safety. Turns out maybe perhaps a bit needlessly in hindsight, but what do we know? So going with the tour for that particular trip felt more comfortable because it managed all of the unknowns.
And that's a perfect example of the Egypt of, we thought the safety was going to be a huge issue. It's really not. Egypt is, mostly very safe, and especially in the tourism things that we did. But that's a reason why you take a tour, is because we didn't know, and we were kind of scared a little bit. Not scared, but family members telling you one thing, media tells you another thing, and you're like, wow, we're kind of frightened. But the
Yeah.
tour group takes care of and all that fear away for safety. You have an armed guard service. It's mandatory by law. We didn't know this.
Yeah.
They don't have any issues, but that's because they put an armed guard with every single tour group everywhere. So
And just safety in numbers, too.
Yep.
You just kind of feel like you're not alone,
yeah.
And for planning purposes, we don't even know where to start.
But now I could feel on the second time going back there, maybe I would try and plan it myself. Maybe I have a little bit more, I'm more comfortable with it now. Anyways, the second pro is convenience. There is something to be said about being picked up at the airport by a private driver, holding a sign with your name on it. That's kind of cool, anyways. Where they help you to, transport your bags. They may, carry them for you, or they shepherd you to your hotel. You don't need to hail a taxi or an Uber or worry about being scammed in the process. Like at a lot of places, there's 1,000 people standing outside saying, "Oh, I'm your taxi driver. I'm this, and I'll take care of you, and I'll get you to your place." That you can get scammed pretty quickly in a lot of those airports. Anyways, throughout the trip, the coach bus makes seamless travel, or around a new city and multiple cities throughout your tour. So it takes the stress out of figuring out how to get from A to B and in between stops, like into little pit stops. You can take a nap. You can scroll on your phone for your photos. You can have a snack. You don't have to be worrying about anything, and there's always a sober driver.
There's always a sober driver.
That can be helpful when you're in wine country, maybe.
Oh, for sure. There are definite destinations where that would be a very big advantage. Another convenient aspect is that the tour company creates the itinerary and does all of the strategic planning. So you don't have to decide where to stay and then wonder, I don't know, is this hotel in a safe part of the city? And how do we get there from the airport? Is it going to be convenient to the things that we want to go see and do? And what should we see and do? And do we have to get tickets ahead of time for those things? And how do we do that? All of those decisions are handled for you. So it makes like mindless travel.
and speaking of things to see and do, the third pro is feeling like a VIP. Most tours, have included in them somehow like national monuments or museums or iconic sites. And not only is it nice to have the tickets paid for, but which they take care of, it's even nicer not to have to stand in a queue, like queue up where you stand in these hour, 2 or 3 hour lines,
Yeah.
which we just came from places that both had things like that.
For sure.
Because the group is often allowed to skip the line because with their group tours, they buy in advance, skip the line passes and they go into a special line. So you get to go into your own group entrance and you breeze right in. You feel a bit special when you pass by the long lines and you walk right through. So it's a big time saver, especially when you're on a tour and you need to see and do a lot of things on a tour. Waiting in line takes up a lot of your time. So you feel very important getting to go right in.
Yeah, that's a good feeling. And if you do have to stand in one of those lines, because sometimes you can't avoid a little bit of that, then one of the things that can make it better is chatting with your brand new friends. And that is our fourth pro, the social aspect. If you have 40 people on a bus and you're traveling together for a week or more, let's say, then you're sharing a unique experience and that can quickly bond you. It's easy to have like lively conversations at the restaurants that the group goes to, and then while you're just in transit on the bus or while you're doing a lovely walking tour of a new town. We have met some wonderful people over the years, including on this recent trip my mom and I took. We have exchanged contact information with a few of those ladies and sharing some photos and things. And funny story, my dad and my stepmom became such good friends with one tour guide.
That we used as well.
Yeah, well, we were on that tour with them at that first one. And so this isn't one of the other participants, but it's the actual tour guide. But many years ago, they just fell in love with her. She was a doll. They requested her again on consecutive tours that they went back to Europe
Multiple
for,
times,
that
yeah.
we weren't on some of those. And they've actually visited this tour guide and her family in her home country of Australia. So they called her like their bonus daughter. And they still talk frequently by messaging, by phone. They even send letters, which I find really cute. Like, who does that anymore? But they do.
Photos.
They send
Yeah.
letters. So you never know what these things can bring.
And that was from the mid 90s, like
That's a
late
long time
90s.
ago.
That,
Mhm.
she was great.
Yeah.
I remember her like it was yesterday. So,
Yeah.
and that is a blessing to be able to, meet people that you can stay connected with. So
They're like-minded individuals, You've got something in
Right.
common right off
Travel.
the bat. Yeah.
you never know what you're going to get out of these tours. Often it can be the best part of the trip with this, meeting new people. For introverts like Julie,
What?
it may be that unexpected social aspect you didn't think about or didn't want or didn't need, that you didn't really realize that you did. But by the end of it, you might turn out to be one of your favorite parts, that special something that made your trip truly unforgettable. Like for me, I'm an extrovert. We are happy if we have new people to meet, no matter where it is. So new stories to hear and share and laughter, and the new friends fills our buckets. And I can do that with a tour group or without. So, but sometimes not so much for an introvert, because if you're not on a tour, you're not going to just go randomly talking to strangers.
Or will you?
I will, but I'm an extrovert.
Well, I know that my mom really loved chatting with our fellow travelers, which depending on the destination you choose and the time of year that you choose, some of those might be on the more mature side. Just so if you are planning a tour, if you're on off season, maybe all the kids are in school, you're probably going to get, some of the older generation. But that's okay. This particular tour that we were on actually did range from about 20 to 80, the ages. So
And
there
you
was a
can
mixture.
You can do some research on that and see what, this company caters to older people. This one caters to a mixed younger crowd. You can do some research to see and read reviews, because then you can also tell by that sometimes as to what people are taking these tours.
Well, and you can also look at the itinerary itself. It could be that it has a lot of walking. Maybe it's aggressive. Maybe it's adventurous. So some of the itineraries lend itself to a younger crowd. And then again, if it's like spring break time, you're probably going to have some families on there that
Right.
are all choosing to do that. But if you are doing it maybe, I don't know, like October or November or something, all the kids are in school, you're more likely to have some retirees taking it. So if that's important to you, you might have to just think about that. But really, you can make friends with anybody.
Right.
So it's fine.
Okay. So all in all, taking a tour is a relatively stress-free experience that provides safety, convenience, expediency, and fun social aspect. All things that can make or break a trip.
True. And we have some friends, they only take guided tours, like period. And they say that it actually saves their marriage from breaking up because They don't argue about, like, what are we going to do today? I want to do this. You want to do that. Blah, 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 blah. So there's no stress. There's no question marks. There's no arguing. It is literally just show up, go with the flow, hang out with new friends, and have fun.
Yeah, you don't get to blame each other for what was going wrong or what we didn't do or where's this or that. So,
Yeah,
you know,
absolutely.
that works for them. But now let's discuss the other side of the coin. Not so much why you shouldn't take a tour, but what are the pros if you do it on your own?
Yeah, because we think both options are good. So we're not trying to downplay one of them. So our first pro for why you should plan it on your own would be flexibility. And I think everyone would agree. Like the main reason you would want to venture off on your own is for flexibility. It's your timeline, your itinerary. You go where you want to go, when you want to go, and you don't have to answer to anyone. So on our tour that we were just on, we had a daily schedule and you cannot be late, or either everybody waits for you and they're all staring at you and kind of irritated, or God forbid, they will leave without you if they need to.
I want to see that happen.
Well, that almost did a couple times. And these schedules tend to be really full. They pack in a lot to maximize your time, and that can be a little bit exhausting and limiting.
If you're the type of person who likes to just explore, wander, dilly-dally, pop in and out of places, stop here, see what's over there, well, that's much easier to do if you are planning your own. You can stay, you can stay up as late as you want, you can sleep in, you can eat wherever and whenever you want to. If you change your mind, if the weather changes, or do something different, or grab an opportunity that presents itself, which we have had happen to us many times, there is much less rigidity and there's more room for the day to unfold naturally and not by timelines and meeting points. You also get to choose which sites you want to go to, like on a tour. That's already set, and you don't get the option of changing it.
No, so on our tour this last week, I would have liked more time at Monet's garden in Giverny. The 1.5 hours we were given was not nearly enough for me. But with the tour, you get what you get. If we had been on our own, we could have stayed as long as we'd wanted. But then we would have had to figure out how to get there and how to get home, and it was an hour and a half from Paris. So there's definitely a trade-off. Doing it on your own is flexible, but then you do need to figure out and calculate your transportation and accommodation and excursions. And I don't know, for us, the research is fun and exciting, but not everybody.
To many people, it sounds extremely daunting. Like they just don't even want to deal with that. That's another one of these things that, hey, I don't need that stress of planning and thinking about all those things. They just want to just have it done for them. That's the tour.
We like that, but anyway.
So time and money. It does take a lot more time to plan the trip, that's for sure. But conversely, and this is the second pro, is going out on your own may save you money. Now the big quotation there is may, because there's a lot of things that give and take with the, saving you money and doing this and whether you do it on your own or you do it with a tour. But it all depends on which class of hotel you choose and things like that. But if you were to do it all on your own, some of the same things that are on the tour and they pay for them one by one, if you do it on your own, that could cost more money or it could save you money depending on which it is. And also when it comes down to it, it might not be a ton of money that you save, just a little bit. And perhaps that extra money, though, is well worth the advantages that the tour offers. So if budget is your only factor, then you should probably go rogue.
Yeah, I actually kind of sat down and calculated one of these one time.
It's difficult.
Well, it's hard because they do get group discounts on their hotels or their airfare or, something like that. But by and large, just apples to apples, I think you're going to save the money. It's just because they add in so much because they have a tour guide and they have the bus and, things like that. So I don't know.
And mostly on the things that you may not do. Like you may choose to not do things and then you save that money. So
Yeah. So exactly. And another thing to think about that a tour has to be paid in full weeks or even months before you go. So you're spending these big chunks of money in advance that are virtually unrefundable unless you have really good travel insurance and a really good reason why you need to cancel. And if you are a solo traveler, then you will also have to pay a single supplement, as sadly everything is based on double occupancy. In addition,
unless you want to share a room with a stranger.
Okay, that's really being adventurous. In addition, a lot of the tour prices, and we see this all the time, they base their airfare out of New York City. Well, we're not in New York City. We're in Minneapolis. So we will likely pay an additional supplement as we're coming from a different city. So that's something that you have to consider as well.
All right, spend it early or spend it as you go. But if you are planning it on your own, some accommodations may be refundable up to a few days before arrival. So we tend to use booking.com. I know there's pros and cons to that. People may have some very strong views about it, but we rarely book a stay that is not refundable. So that gives us options to change our itinerary, stay somewhere else, cancel if someone gets sick, or if we don't go. And as for the museum entries and things like that, you might not feel like doing it that day, so you don't even want to go. Then you haven't bought the tickets yet. Great, you're not out that money. But if you buy it with a tour, you're out that money automatically.
Yeah, so you're saying there may be less wasted dollars, basically. So on my recent tour, there was a family of 3. This kind of blew my mind. There was a mom and her 2 adult sons, and they did not go to quite a few of the planned restaurants because they wanted to just wander around and pick out their own place. They also skipped some of the big excursions. And I mean, that's fine. That's your prerogative. But technically, you paid for those things in the tour price. And then not only that are you missing that money, but you have to spend more money to find the new restaurant or the new activity that you're going to do instead. And then also the transportation to and fro when you leave the group. So you have to really think about, make sure that itinerary works for you.
By the way, just in case, let's just point this out. We're at our home studio here, the bonus room.
Studio.
The bonus room. And we have a 13-year-old dog that we've talked many times about, and it's part of where we're at with our travels and whatnot. And if you might have just heard while we were sitting here, our wonderful dog Dilly is sitting over on the nearby, and she got up and she shook a little bit, and you might have heard her ears flopping around.
She turned in a circle and got comfortable again.
And if that's on video, on the recording here for the podcast, that's kind of cool because she'll be immortalized on podcast. So.
Yeah, then I can go back and listen to it someday and hear her. Yeah.
So maybe they
Anyway.
were, that family.
Yeah.
They might have been looking for time away from the group because sometimes you get a little tired of being with the group as well. And that leads us to our third.
Well, hang on. So before you jump into that, I actually asked her at one point. I said, "Hey, excuse me," because we were friendly. We actually chose to sit in the back of the bus, which is where kind of it goes rogue. The front of the bus sometimes it's almost like assigned seating. They
sit so quietly listening and paying attention to do anything.
Well, no, and then
Back of the
apparently
bus is more fun.
Apparently, tour groups have had to get into an assigned seat rotation because too many of these older folks would fight for the front spots, and it got to be kind of a problem. So now they will say every day you have to rotate 3 seats back, and they actually have your name assigned to a row.
That's so funny.
Or
We're
if
so
you're-
opposite.
If
We're
you're not
fighting for the
interested in
back.
that, you just go to the back where nobody cares. So we sat back there, and so did this family of 3. And so I did ask her, I said, "Excuse me, I'm just curious. I know you guys aren't into doing some of the things with the group. I'm just curious, why did you take a tour?" And the boys go, "Yeah, Mom, why are we on a tour?" She's like, "Well, it just seemed like it would be so much easier to plan, and I didn't want to have to worry about all these things." And all that is true. But then when it came down to it, she didn't really want to do some of the things that was on the tour. So it's kind of a conundrum, hold your hand, do it yourself.
If you've got the money and you want to just take that stress away and do some of the things, take the tour and then just wander off and do the things you want to do and just ignore the group if you want to. That tour group manager doesn't mind as long as you make the bus and make it to the stops and the hotels, and
Yeah,
they're okay with it.
it's true.
All right, on to the third pro. Privacy. And maybe that's what they wanted. If your goal is to have a romantic vacation, intimate conversations, and a special family celebration, well, that would definitely be easier to achieve if you planned it yourself. Certainly not impossible to do on a tour, but there's a lot more privacy when you are. There's a lot less privacy when you're on a bus together for a week and seated next to each other or at dinners most of the nights.
Yeah, that's true. And privacy is also important if you have a challenging family dynamic, or maybe you just don't want people to see you when you're not at your best. Like maybe when your little kid is screaming and they need a timeout, or you might be negotiating with a surly teenager who refuses to dress appropriately. Maybe you don't want people to see what you look like after a particularly late night, or maybe even the hotel ran out of hot water and you didn't get to wash your hair. I mean, who knows what it is? There's all different kinds of things, but you also
I
might
don't have
not.
that problem.
Well, you're bald. Yes, that's true. But
Voluntarily.
yeah. Way to point that out. You certainly also don't want them to hear you if you and your spouse were arguing over, I don't know, like who put the passports somewhere or,
That's a common
whatever.
one.
Tony's always misplacing things, so we have that argument a lot. But I mean, these might be reasons why you'd want to plan your own trip. If you just think your family dynamic might be complicated for the group and you might need your own space.
All right. Our final and fourth pro for planning your trip yourself is personal satisfaction. Let's say you planned a week-long trip to a foreign destination, including transportation, accommodation, and excursions all by yourself, and you had a fabulous time.
Woohoo!
You would come home with an immense satisfaction knowing that you succeeded and flourished in a foreign land and might truly feel like you are a citizen of the world and that you get your full participation trophy.
What's the trophy?
The trophy is self-respect that you got to do it all yourself. And there's no pride.
Bragability.
What? Prideability?
No, bragability.
Oh, bragability.
Like you could
Yeah.
brag, like, I
Yeah,
painted
you
myself.
know what? There is a little bit of that. You feel pretty good about saying, hey, I conquered, I did it all on our own. And
Who is your travel agent?
We were.
Wah. Well, yeah. And when you plan it yourself, then your trip is designed by and like curated by you for your own pace and your interests, which in theory should be more personally satisfying than a tour that someone else designed according to what they think you should see and do. I mean, I enjoyed myself on this last tour with my mom, but when we were in London, we toured the city on a narrated bus tour, and it was a real tour guide. I mean, he was actually very funny. He wasn't like on the speaker or anything, but I kind of felt like I was being kept at arm's length from the real London. I didn't get to just like meander in the streets and brush elbows with the crowd. And I saw a lot of famous places, but I didn't get to really experience and feel the pulse of the city. So it was like it was a feast for my eyes, but my soul kind of felt unfulfilled. It was very different from when you and I travel. Like
Sure.
we are down in it. And this one, I just felt like I was kind of kept back a little bit. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
I kind of felt that way.
So no taking the underground, like the tube.
Yeah.
Don't, like just, it's too much stairs and walking and exploring the big markets or anything like that then?
We didn't do much of that. I mean, with my mom, well, we definitely did not take the underground. That was a no-go. And we did go to Covent Garden, and there are some really cool shop stalls and like a little market there. And we did do that briefly, but it was very brief because she just cannot walk for very far. And we ended up taking Ubers and taxis everywhere, which is convenient, except, oh my gosh, it can take you a half an hour to go a mile. It's unbelievable, and it's a very expensive way to get around, but it was just a necessary evil for us to minimize the walking for her.
I sense a podcast about traveling with people of a certain age.
Yeah, that's possible. That could be.
Did you feel unfulfilled because you had been there before, maybe, and that wasn't your first time in London? I mean, if it had been, would you have felt that it was a little bit more exciting then? If this was your first time with your mom?
Yeah, I mean, that's entirely possible. I don't think my mom felt unfulfilled. And I would agree that taking tours like this on your first time somewhere is a good way to like get the lay of the land and see as much as possible in a short period of time. And it's kind of a little bit of quantity over quality. And then if you're lucky enough to return, then you can do a more in-depth exploration then. So yeah, I do think that a lot of people who were first timers in London felt very happy with what they got.
But if you don't get to return and you could only go somewhere one time, then what would you do or recommend?
Well, I guess that depends on all the factors that we kind of discussed. So what level of security and assistance do you need? How ambitious or lazy do you want to be? What's your budget? How much flexibility and privacy does your family require? And if you are okay with sharing your expensive trip, by the way, with a bunch of people you've never met. So, I mean, that could present some problems too. You don't know what you're going to get. So, I don't know. What do you think? What would you say, having done a lot of both of them?
You know me. I love doing our own thing. I love renting cars, driving them in foreign countries, differences and all of that has. I like creating our own schedule and, searching out the hidden gems, like, the ones that aren't found on tours, like, that when you're in London and you go see Big Ben or you go see the big attractions, you're going to do that with any tour group. But then it's the graffiti tunnel that we went to. You're never going to do that on a tour group. And we got time to go do that because we planned our own trip and we knew that we were scheduling that into what we wanted to do, that kind of stuff. Having said that, it was pretty nice last fall to not have to spend hours poring over planning details. And it was also because we were going with a group of friends. It was, we didn't have to be responsible for all of that and for them. And it was a lot less responsibility once we arrived. I didn't have to worry about the rental car, navigation, getting dinner reservations, or choosing what tours to do. And we learned so much from our awesome guide last year that we never would have got that or learned all that stuff had we done it on our own. A lot of times we go to a museum when we're not on a tour. We see things. I just did this with our daughter last week in the Uffizi. Like I was looking at these paintings, things. If I was on a tour group, I would have learned a lot more about the actual paintings and the sculptures and the things. And if you do it on your own, you kind of just walk by and go, oh, that's pretty, or that's neat, or I like that, or I don't like that, and move on. But you don't learn the history on some things. So there's give and take.
Yeah, that Egyptian tour guide, he really made Egypt come to life for us. And I will say there are times and places for like the audio guides that you get at these museums. Sometimes you get them and they're really, really good. And it makes everything that you see that much more impactful and memorable. Like you take personal stories home from maybe that painting. But like on this last tour with my mom, there were some times where like, I don't even want the audio guide. Like in the Louvre, I'm sorry, it's just so gigantic.
That's like a 24-hour tour.
I was pushing her around in a wheelchair and we were just trying to get through the crowd, which was almost impossible. And it was all we could do. We had 2 hours there. That's all they gave us. And I just had to figure out how to get to what she wanted to see. And using those little audio guides you hold up to your ear, forget it. Forget
Right.
it. I didn't even do it. So anyway, that was kind of off topic. But um, I also think that tours and not tours, I think it's possible that it's a stage of life thing. Like when we were young and we were new to travel, we took tours because we didn't know what we were doing. And then now, as we become more confident travelers, we were excited to explore and to do it all of ourselves. And now, as we get even a little older, still, we might get lazier again and realize, meh, let's let someone else do all the hard work. We can just relax and go along with it. Like we've planned it ourselves before. Overrated. I don't know. It's both.
So this last year with traveling, retiring, quit tiring, whatever, and then traveling as much to do, logistics of planning and doing it on your own takes up a lot, and I mean a lot of time if you want to do it thoroughly and do it right. So I can say we've had epic adventures. We've done some amazing things this last year. That's because a lot of time went into it. And if you don't have that time to put into it to make it as special as we have, and we've done a bunch of trips, so that's the thing, is like, hey, I just want to go on a 10-day vacation with my wife and I don't want to think about it. A tour does a lot of that hits the high spots. So there's advantages there too. I think it also might depend on the destination. The more complicated the destination, like Egypt, for whatever reason, maybe we take a tour. And if it's somewhere we've been and we know and we can navigate, like Charleston or Paris or London, we would do it on our own because we know the things we've seen, and a tour is going to hit a lot of them again. And we wouldn't want to do that again. We'd want to go and see new stuff. So
Yeah.
we plan it ourselves.
Yeah, that's true. That's very true. That's fair. So, okay, any final thoughts for our listeners about whether or not they should take a planned tour or plan it themselves?
I do have some. I would say whichever you choose, which you're going to do one or the other, focus on the positives of the trip you take and your choices. Almost all trips are going to have some negatives or slight hiccups that bother you. Don't let regret creep in, and that you should have done this or planned, you should have used a tour group, or I should have planned it ourselves because we didn't like this. Maybe we should, that is a road of wasted energy. Instead, focus on all the positives that resulted from your choices that you made and all the cool experiences that you had. Like, you got to see some things that you never would have got to see or do. And you'll return back home with great memories. And actually, over time, some of those hiccups may even become some of your most cherished memories. So when you
Or
get
at least
home,
your best stories.
yeah, it's for sure some of the stories. I mean, we had some horrible ones, but those horrible ones are funny now. But when you're in the right when you get home and you're like, oh man, why didn't we take a tour? That we butchered that by trying to plan ourselves. Don't do that. That's just wasted time and effort.
That was very positive, honey. I think that was very optimistic.
You got to be.
And you know what? I think there's a good balance. Like for us right now, as you just said, we're traveling so much. That's a lot of planning. Sometimes that's overwhelming. So maybe there are times where we take a tour and just take a break, and other times we go for it and plan our own adventures. I think that, it can be both.
Right.
You don't have to be all or one.
Okay. So once again, thank you for joining us today. And I hope you like the topic. It's kind of, we played off of a previous podcast that we just kind of did, recently. So we're starting to, think of some of these topics that we think about and talk about on a daily basis. Julie and I do. And this is one we thought kind of might help people make a decision as to, which way they're going to take a trip. So if you enjoyed it, the podcast, please leave us a comment or give us a review. We hardly have any reviews on, a couple of the platforms.
And one of them's from our daughter. Yeah. So that doesn't even count.
So please help us out. We appreciate you. Please appreciate us. Leave us a message or a comment or anything that helps promote us. We'd appreciate that. Thank you. And thank you for tuning in. And until next time,
wheels up.